Hi there and welcome to the Neckpour. My name's Lewis and welcome to the Whisky Review channel where I give you my thoughts on a bottle of whisky from the Neckpour all the way down to the dregs. Before we get started, I'd like to ask you to leave a like if you enjoy the content, drop me a comment below if you have any thoughts on this whisky or would like to make a recommendation for review, and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to see more. You join me here today for the dregs to finish a pretty special bottle of whisky, which is a 24-year-old Port Dundas. Sadly, this is a limited release and is now long sold out. Unlike the Neckpour, these are bottles that I've sat with for the duration of drinking the bottle, and as such, these are not my first impressions. There'll be a slightly more thought out and considered video with a degree more research done into the bottling. This was bottled by 5 independent bottlers for the Edinburgh Whisky Festival 2022 and is a charity bottling in aid of Doddie Weir's foundation, the My Name'5 Doddie, to fight against motor neurone disease. This is a single grain whisky from the now closed Port Dundas distillery. It's been bottled at a cask strength of 54.9% and aged for 23.5 years in a refill bourbon hogshead, followed by an 8-month finishing in a sherry cask that had been used by Glenallachie. This whisky is natural presented and is natural colour and non-chill filtered. This is bottle 115 out of 130 and cost me £104.95. Although given that £30 of that was a donation to charity, I don't think £75 for a 24-year-old bottle from a closed distillery is bad value at all. So instead of wasting any further time, let's pour ourselves a dram and jump in for an up close and personal look. I think it's quite fitting that I finished this bottle on Super Saturday, the last day of the Six Nations, considering its association with rugby. And being a lifelong rugby fan, I'm old enough to have seen just the end of Doddie Weir's career and his legacy. Representing Scotland at international level 61 times and touring with the British and Irish Lions, this bottle was distilled in the year 2000, the year that Doddie won his last cap for Scotland. Diagnosed with motor neurone disease in 2017, the foundation was set up to fundraise to help the fight against motor neurone disease and those in their families that have been diagnosed. To date, they've raised £19.5 million to help in the fight, and I've linked the foundation below and would like to take a moment to ask everyone to have a quick look at the work they do and consider taking a couple of pounds that would have gone on your next purchase of a bottle of whisky and consider making a small donation. Please do accept my apologies if that was a little bit heavy, but I only felt it was right to bring attention to the cause that this bottle represents. As you can see from the up-close footage, there's a wonderful coppery golden amber tone, and despite a long time in the cask, as it's been aged exclusively in refilled wood, you can see it's not over-oaked or over-coloured, and you can see just how thick and oily this whisky is, coating the side of the glass before draining down almost in sheets rather than drops. So let's have a sniff and think of what we think on the nose. Straight away, the aromas coming from the glass are rich and inviting and wonderfully complex. There's a really unique kind of coconut smell, along with plenty of oak, spice, vanilla and butter. And there's nothing abrasive at all, no alcohol notes or any sharpness or any prickle. And you can see that 24 years mixing with the air and the oak have really rounded out the edges. It's truly a lovely smell, keeps you coming back for more, and with each smell, another layer of flavour is uncovered, as if gently peeling back the layers of this. I can't wait any longer though, and I am going to have to go in for a little taste. Instantly, the whole mouth is coated with this wonderful, thick, silky whisky with lots of buttered popcorn, oak and pepper, and it's mellow but yet still full of flavour and rich, and to steal kind of wine industry words, you call it full-bodied. And it's just a smooth round warmth to it. There's no sort of hints of anything aggressive. It's soft but yet still incredibly strong and incredibly flavoursome, but yeah, soft and mellow. And I think coming from being grain rather than a single malt, so therefore not necessarily everything in here has been malted, there's a kind of dustiness almost that I associate with it. And yeah, it's just an absolutely stellar dram, really. I've really enjoyed this bottle. This is also the first bottle I've ever bought from an independent bottler that I know of. I mean, I've tried a few drams at kind of occasions, or have bought samples of other things from an independent bottler, but this is the first full size bottle that I've bought, and it's certainly something that I'm going to try and get more involved in this year. Particularly when it's a company like Five Independent Bottlers that are clearly doing things the right way. And although I didn't actually get a chance to pick a bottle up just because of how much whiskey I'd bought when we went away on holiday, they did another bottle for the Six Nations this year that was for another charity bottling. And yeah, this is a wonderfully complex whiskey with a really long finish in the mouth. It starts off kind of light and ends with a kind of peppery oak flavour to it that's it's really enjoyable, and it's the kind of whiskey that keeps you coming back for more. And again, when you can combine buying really good quality whiskey with supporting what seems to be a great small business and giving money to charity at the same time, who can argue with that? I mean, I do still have a little measure left in here, but most of that will be going into my infinity bottle, because that's what I do with every whiskey that I finish. I save the last drops for that. And my infinity bottle is not necessarily curated, more just a living history of everything I've been drinking. And again, I think this might be the first bottle of single grain whiskey I've bought. I've bought plenty of blended Scotch, including grain, but buying something that's exclusively a single grain, I think this may well be the first bottle I've ever purchased. And based on this, again, it's something I need to look more into. I think when we're just getting into whiskey, you're kind of falsely led down the path that only single malt's worth drinking. Anything else is no good and should be cast aside, which I think is just a really narrow-minded mindset to have, and you're potentially going to miss out on things that are really good quality. A lot of these grain distilleries have been doing what they've been doing for a long time, and just because something isn't entirely made of malted barley doesn't necessarily make it any worse than something that is. It just gives it a different profile. And you look at all of the big Irish whiskies, and they're nearly always single pot still whiskies because they're not entirely malted. It's malted and unmalted barley, and occasionally there are other grains mixed in there as well. And I think for the sake of our whiskey education, we should make sure that we are open minded and willing to try new things and things we've never had before. Because if we stay so focused on just one distillery, just one region, just one style of whiskey, we're going to miss out on things that we really enjoy or are just educational for us. Every bottle doesn't have to be the best thing you've ever drunk, but every bottle should teach you a little bit more about what whiskey is and about what whiskey you like, because that's the aim of the game, is to educate ourselves and to educate our palates so that we can make good decisions, we can buy the right things, we can buy the things that we really enjoy, as opposed to ending up wasting money on bottles that are no good. But yeah, to sum up, this is simply a lovely bottle of whiskey. I mean, it's one that I'm genuinely sad to see go. This is a bottle of whiskey that I've really enjoyed, actually, from the start all the way through. And I feel like I can indulge myself slightly because I've made an altruistic donation to charity whilst purchasing it, and that's a kind of just gives a kind of warming feeling, you know. As a big rugby fan, it's a story that was horrible to watch unfold. And by buying something that I've got a lot of enjoyment out of as an item, I've also given some money to help with something that I feel passionately about. So that's a kind of added benefit, as well as the quality of the whiskey. I certainly do think, though, moving forward, Five Independent Bottlers will be well on my radar, and I'll be certainly keeping close tabs on the things they're putting out. Although I'm not going to be getting another bottle of 24-year-old Port Dundas from them, as it was a one cask only kind of deal. But they clearly have a real passion for good whiskey. And if every year they're going to do a charity bottling in aid of a rugby related cause, I mean, that's just really right up my alley. Selling good whiskey with a kind of altruistic aim, you can't go wrong with that at all, really, from where I'm sat. And yeah, that kind of sums up my review of this bottle. It's really good. If you do see anything from Five Independent Bottlers, please do have a look, because yeah, this is really good stuff. And they looks like they're doing some really interesting cask things where they're buying spirit in and then finishing it themselves. It looks like everything they've sold on their website that I've seen anyway, they finished themselves, including some really odd casks, which would be interesting to see at least. Although, maybe I'd want a sample first of some of them before I committed to a full bottle. And again, as I say, if you've got time, I've linked it below. Please do go and have a look at the My Name'5 Doddie Foundation website. Have a look at some of the stuff they do. And if you can spare it, throwing a couple of quid their way would be really appreciated by them and by the families they're supporting. And it's a truly awful disease, and anything we can do to help, I think, is definitely worth it. Before we go, I would like to ask again, if you've enjoyed the video, please drop me a like down below. If you've got a comment to make about the whiskey, about the review, or want to recommend and see any other bottles, please drop that in the comments. And please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you're notified the next time I post. Other than that, though, I'd like to raise a glass, as it says on the bottle and the lovely handwritten note. This one's for Doddie, and I'll just see you next time for another episode. Cheers.